Okay, we are live. All right. So, the discussion that we are going to have is actually regarding three issues. Firstly, we need a custom component that you may be working on.
Sure.
All right. It's a small component, but it may be a bit tricky, but I'll show you what exactly we want.
Mhm.
Then we have another issue of flattening the state of oscilloscope. I'll tell you what that is. And one minor issue that you can work on, that's in the wave generator. So let's talk about them one by one. Just a sec. Okay. Uh, you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a second. My recordings, usually what happens is the person who is speaking, the camera automatically pans to that person for some reason. I don't know why that happens. Yeah, so you see this component? Is it visible?
Yeah.
Clear enough? So this particular section, this part, should I select this? You see this?
Slider.
Yeah, you see the slider kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So we need this, but we need a custom component. The reason being, every time the state updates, the slider comes back to its original position, so it becomes unusable when the graph is updating in real time. So what I'm planning is, uh, so when we are in Fourier transform and the data is being rendered here in the graph, so it's in real time, so the whole thing keeps on updating. Now, I tried using that brush thing here, but the whole thing becomes unusable when the data is updating in real time because the whole thing comes back to its original position as soon as the data updates. So what I want you to do is create a component and put this here in the data analysis card under maybe this section, which will look something similar to this. And we'll make an improvement in this by adding a dummy SVG kind of thing in the background of this rectangle, which will be basically something, I mean, some sort of graph. I mean, if I draw it out for you. Okay. So here's the rectangle, which will be like kind of narrow, so it's fine if you make it a bit thin, no issues. So, and of course, it will have something like this,
Yeah.
and this will be the part that we are zooming in. So when the user selects, I mean, hovers on this area,
Mhm.
the icon should change to, I mean, the cursor should change to something like this.
Okay.
Okay. And when he is in the middle section, the cursor should change to something like this.
And
So,
also, if the data from the map, from the graph, sorry, updates, then it should not go back to its original place, right?
yeah. So, what we are actually trying to do is, because this is a custom component, will probably pass two functions, one function. So one will be for, I mean, any change that is being registered will go through that function. So this will be, say, a custom component X, and we are passing a prop on change, something, the standard thing,
Hmm.
and two values. One will be, it can be two values, it can be three actually. It can be something like size and minimum and maximum. Minimum and maximum, I think, is the wrong term here. Minimum and maximum will be for these two actually. So current minimum or maximum could be a possible name. Current minimum, current maximum. These two values will be changed by this function, the on change function that will be passing. So anytime the user shifts this, say he is shifting this particular bar like this, so we'll be updating the current minimum value.
Okay.
And when he is shifting this, we'll update this current max. And then we'll basically use these two values in our graph. Are you getting it?
Yeah.
So basically, this is completely decoupled from this thing, so it doesn't matter whether the graph is updating or not. We are just passing values, and the domain is being adjusted based on the current minimum and current maximum.
Okay.
So this may be a bit challenging, and I'm not sure how it will be done. It will be a div on top of another div, of course. So it has to be very flexible in the sense that you have seen the custom slider that we are using, right?
Yeah.
So it's very flexible because we can just pass a prop saying full width and it will just work. You know, it will take up the whole width and everything without any issues. So to do something like that, you may have to use a bit of ref, if you have read about it. Ref lets you basically hook into the actual DOM component. So you'll be able to grab values like width, height of the actual DOM component. So you can read about it a bit. The ref,
Okay.
and ref is going to be deprecated later. So React hooks, the new thing that they have given in
Mm.
16.8. So React hooks give you something called useRef. This is a function that they give, and you can basically take advantage of that. So you read a bit about ref, and firstly, if you have ever done a bit of HTML before, so it might be something like this: get element by ID or something like that.
Yeah, I've used.
So ref is something similar. Ref is exactly similar to that, exactly same actually. You're just doing it in the React way. So you basically get an object by ref, and then you can basically make changes using that ref. So when you have that ref object, you can just get height or get width or whatever. So the standard JavaScript functions work. So no issues there. So the basic idea might be you have props like full width, so the width automatically adjusts and takes up the whole width. And you have to hook in a few listeners, which will be listening for width change, of course. So when finally the component is stable, stable in the sense there's no change in width or anything like that. So in that case, you will have a full width, say, I don't know, um, some 0 to say 140 pixels is the current value. So in that case, you are basically mapping 0 to the minimum value of whatever the user has given, and 140 to whatever the maximum value user has given. Then you have a div inside this div, div, and uh, now the kind of thing that was happening there, as in you were hovering here and the icon changes to this. This I think is possible by adding a div here and adding a div here, and these two divs will be really thin, like 1 pixel or 2 pixel wide. So basically, this is a stack of three divs, horizontal stack of three divs. One div here, another div here, another div here. So when the user hovers on this div, the icon changes to this. Same for this. And when the user hovers here, the icon changes to that hand kind of thing for grabbing, you know.
Okay.
So, um, yeah, so when this div is being moved, so you'll have to listen for scroll events, or I don't know. Uh, so there are many events that you can listen for. You have to listen for that and change the width of this div accordingly. Are you getting it?
Yeah.
So you'll figure it out. Should be simple. So
I
based
have to
on,
look it into it. It's kind of new thing for me.
yeah, it will be tricky. In fact, even I haven't done anything like this before, so
Okay.
should be interesting. So
Sure.
when you, yeah, so when you basically move this div, the red divs width should change, and you have to call the on change function, and based on the width and position or whatever, maybe based on the width of this inner div, the red one, you'll be able to figure out the uh, current current minimum and current maximum value, right?
Okay.
Or you can take in any kind of prop you feel like, I mean, would be more appropriate as you need. All right. So that's issue number one. Any doubts regarding this?
Yeah. Just to be clear, that
Hmm.
there's no that example you are showing in that the graph is actually adjusting according to
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
We have to make it like similar data.
yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
you don't really have to worry about the graph here. When you're making this component, you don't have to worry about this.
Okay. We
All you need
are
to take, yeah, you just need to change the prop that we are passing in. That's it.
okay.
So, like for example, the sliders, we pass a prop and we
Mhm.
pass a function to change the prop, right? Now, what we do with that prop is a different story, and we don't have to worry about that. Because, see, in case of this, say, so here the time base value is being changed by the slider,
Yeah.
right? But your graph is not exactly directly linked to the slider. The time base changes, so we are passing that time base to this graph, and the graph is being changed accordingly based on some logic that we have written in
Okay.
the graph.
Okay.
Are you getting it?
Yeah. Yeah.
We are basically making a custom slider, which is a bit more different. If you actually want to see something similar, it would be React range slider, uh, something like this, the
Okay.
lower one.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I get the idea.
Okay. So that's it for this particular component. Okay. So the next issue that we are going for is this can be done later actually, but let me just address this real quick. So the thing is, the state we have defined here,
Hmm.
flattening in the sense is basically you flatten the whole object. As in, you see, this is a nested object within, this is an object within another object.
Hmm.
So this makes it a bit problematic in Redux actually, because comparison becomes difficult. The deeper the component is, the comparison becomes even more difficult. So for that, we need to flatten this, and at the same time, this also makes it a problem when we are sending the data to the Python script. This is because in the Python script, we have flat variables. So ch1, ch2, ch3, this is true or false.
Okay.
So we have, while in the component itself, we have an object, active channels, and in that we have ch1, ch2, ch3. So when sending the data, we actually have to unroll this, you see this here. See?
We actually unwrap. We have to unwrap it first.
Yeah, so this is a problem, and this is actually making this whole code look kind of bigger as well. Because you see, I could have just written, I mean, if this whole object was flattened, then I could just have written this.
Hmm.
Even this wouldn't have been required then. See, code shortened. So this this can be done, and I think this should be done. And
Okay, that's very basic issue, I
yeah,
think.
but this will be done later because I think the Redux thing needs to be figured out before we actually do this. Because that will, I mean, if you make changes here in the class component and then I integrate Redux again, then I'll have to do extra work. So I think I'll firstly figure out. You notice that performance issue when we integrated React.
There's some kind of lag,
Yeah,
it's
so
minimum, but it's a it having a lag after we have integrated the Redux.
yeah, so I'm not really sure why that was happening because maybe because we connected too many components that are unnecessary. Maybe I don't know. So I'll have to figure that out before I can actually, you know, actually use Redux for the whole thing. So for that we have.
Well, Redux stores all the states and props
Mhm.
globally, right?
Yeah,
So it's keeping the memory, well, it's using the memory for all that
that
state.
is not an issue. I think the issue actually is we are subscribing to that store, right?
Hmm.
So whenever that store changes, your component needs to know that something has changed. So we are subscribing to that store, and because we are subscribing too many components that actually don't need to re-render every time, so maybe that is an issue. So I don't really know what exactly it is,
I
but
haven't read much about the Redux, but can we make multiple stores in Redux?
no, single
Okay,
store.
only one store.
That multiple store concept is for something called Flux, which the Facebook team used before Redux came out. So in that, multiple stores were allowed, but that architecture was discouraged later on. So when Redux came out, the concept of single source of truth was there, and basically you just have one store, and for the whole app, you have one store. Okay. Our aim is to uh, keep only those state values globally that are related to device configuration, because what we want to do is our app should become the source of truth for the configuration and not the device. I showed you that thing where you change to another instrument, and after a few seconds, not few seconds, after a fraction of a second, the setting changes because you need to fetch the configuration from the device first.
Device, yeah.
So in this case, I mean, what we are trying to do is we want to move that whole configuration thing to the app itself. So keeping them at one place is mandatory because when your component is not there on the screen, your component has not mounted. And if your component has not mounted, it does not have a state, right? So if we don't have all those state at one place, we won't be able to send that configuration value to the device at once. For example, if you have the oscilloscope opened up right now, and you connect the device, and now your device has been connected, you need to configure that device. So your app needs to send the state value to the device, right?
Yeah.
Now, if your power source component is not there on the screen, the power source configuration cannot be sent,
Hmm.
right? So to deal with that, we need to have this at a global position so that all the configurations can be accessed at once.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what we are trying to do, but again, lagging and all that, all those issues. So we need to figure out how many components we actually need to connect to the store, and from where exactly we need to pull that data. Because there again, when you subscribe to the store, it is basically passing props from the store to that component. Okay. and your app re-renders as soon as your prop changes, right? Any component that is being supplied a prop, and if that prop changes, that whole component will be re-rendered. This is
Okay.
the basic concept of React. Now, if we are trying to access the whole store at app.js, which is basically the parent of the whole app, in that case, if you change anything in the store, your whole app is being re-rendered. Like for now, this is not happening because uh, just a sec. So for now, let's say we have this oscilloscope open. So the state values are being stored in this component itself, not app.js. So if you make changes in, say here, you change this. So only this component is being re-rendered, nothing else. Okay. So this is a
Okay.
big performance boost. And then again, when the graph is being re-rendered, I shifted the data state to the graph, if you remember.
Yeah.
So this was done because when the graph re-renders, only this graph needs to change, right? Nothing else in the app. So moving the state to the graph was the right thing to do. So only the graph will be re-rendered and everything will run smooth. So I mean, these are kind of minor optimizations that will go a long way, but we need to figure things out before we can actually, you know, use them directly. So for that, I think this is an issue that you can, keep in the back of your head, but we'll address that after maybe we have finished with logic
Hmm.
analyzer rather. So logic analyzer most probably will be done in 1 or 2 weeks. So after that, we'll circle back around and do these optimizations.
Okay. You are working on the logic analysis because
Yes,
Hodor
yes, yes.
requested.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
And one minor issue that you can take up right now is this. This is wave generator. So the way this works is basically when you're using digital pin, yeah, or the digital output rather. Uh, Wait, yeah, you're able to see, right?
Yeah.
So you have this waveform setting and you have the digital whatever. So these two are available to you. So when you're using the digital side of this thing, the waveform part will be disabled. Okay.
Okay.
So this is how the device works. The device has this limitation then that when you are using, when you are generating square waves, which are basically digital waveforms, you are not allowed to use the analog wave channels. Okay. So if you try to read something from those channels, those pins, you'll get a very distorted wave. So we have to show this here in our app by actually disabling it. So when you are using the waveform, just the opposite happens and the digital pin is disabled. See?
Hmm.
Now, while implementing, I forgot something. So this is this particular issue. So both are disabled right now, which cannot be possible. All right. So what you need to do is you have to make sure that at least one of them is active at all times. So,
Okay.
so the user should not be able to do this. If he does this, the other one should turn back on. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so address this. This should be really trivial. Just have to change. I think the function that is basically uh, like taking care of the sliders,
Yeah.
not sliders, switches. Yeah. So these three things. Yeah, you can work on these three for now.
Okay. So component I will work. Flattening
Yeah.
or scope you have to do some.
Yeah. So right away you can start working on the custom component and the PWM issue.
Okay. And there is a refactoring issue I want to address. I addressed in previous meeting also that
Hmm.
we should store all the strings globally because we are
Ah, right. You told me about that. Yeah, we can do that, but I think we should address that later. I think because uh, we'll be changing components a lot. So if we start refactoring right away while the components are being made functional, then we'll have a bit of delay because we'll have to wait for each other's PR to get merged.
Okay. Okay, just
So,
let me then open the issue and we will work it.
sure. Okay. All right then. Any further questions that needs to be answered?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay then. Okay.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Cool. Bye.
Bye.